Hi, Danny. My question is, there should be, it seems to me, if you are a public broadcast station, that you have in your permit some obligation to objective truth, to substantiate what you say. I mean, that could be applied to both MSNBC and Fox News. And there could be editorial sections of the news as well that could be clearly stated. But when you're broadcasting news, it seems to me there'd be some obligation to substantiate what you say.
You have a
To
perfectly
that,
healthy set of instincts functioning there, Gene. Except the thing is that there are cases on this, and there's a thing called the Red Lion case, and that's the fairness doctrine, and that was the entire rationale as to why the government had any legitimate interest whatsoever in mandating objective reporting with regard to campaigns. If you allow someone from one campaign to get on, you have to give other people equal time. All of that was predicated upon the fact that for NBC and CBS and ABC, they were functioning in the airwaves that had a limited capacity for carrying televised signals. And that the argument was that the people collectively, we own the airspace. And if there's a limited capacity that the airspace has to carry television signals, that the government, acting on behalf of the collective, therefore have a commensurate right to regulate what's being done there. The challenge has arisen with cable television. Cable television has it's not public airwaves at all. The cable television is usually going through cables, and that there's an infinite number of them. You can have an infinite number of channels, and therefore you don't have to have government permits. Like we don't have to have a government permit to have this conversation that we're having right now, and so that we can say anything we want. We aren't compelled to say, oh look, Danny has spent an hour putting out his version of how you can review the legitimacy of government project. We don't have to have somebody from Fox News come on and spend another hour lecturing you on the other side. So that our communications are not permitted. We don't need to have a permit like ABC and CBS and NBC had. And the radios had the same thing because they were going through radio channels. There's only a limited number of radio channels you can have within the bandwidth. But that isn't true of cable. And that's why this whole new legal issue has arisen about what rights they have to say anything they want to say. And Fox News, of course, has taken full and complete advantage of that. Then you get into this entire area of free speech. Nobody has to watch Fox News if you don't want to. Nobody's twisting your arm or making you watch Fox News. And so that's the most fundamental theory of the free marketplace of ideas. People can say anything they want. And then you can say, well, but they're lying. Yeah, but the question is, you don't want to give the government the power to determine what's true and what's not true. Because the minute you do that, they're going to screw us. They're going to screw us. They're going to say, okay, we've now got a truth bureau. And Dan Sheehan is saying that George H.W. Bush was an intimate player in the off-the-shelf enterprise in the Iran-Contra scandal. Holy shit, you can't let him say that. Get him off the air. Shut him off. Don't let him say that in public. Let's compare it to crying fire in a crowded theater. There's this entire panoply of principles that have been evolved around free speech that we have to safeguard, to the extreme. And then we have to tolerate Fox News saying the kind of things they do, even if they're lying. And then MSNBC can come on, or the New York Times can come on and say, here's a list of 1,000 times that Fox News has lied. And they can put that out to everybody, and it's available, and they can carry on this dispute about what's true and what isn't true. And so that you don't have to permit. Fox News doesn't have to have a permit to say the things they're saying. And there can be no government agency that can, condition them being allowed to go up over the cable television, predicated upon having what they're saying cleared by the government. I am not suggesting a full equivalency that's going on here, but I do know that when you find MSNBC and CNN, championing guys like Jim Comey and Jack Brennan and the CIA people, and rolling out the head of the Council on Foreign Relations, for their sources of authority on things, that you have to be skeptical. And it's very difficult to be skeptical of people who 95% of the time are saying things that you agree with. And so all I'm saying is that we have to be careful about what it is that we're just swallowing without doing our own looking into some of these things. That's all I'm saying. Because you'll see, for example, on MSNBC, there's all kinds of attacks going on now about the groups that of Google and Facebook and Julian Assange, and all of that stuff, that you have to be careful of sort of adopting whole cloth what any one particular source of news and authority are saying. And we have a great tendency not to exercise any kind of real care in listening to the sources that we like and that they're saying things we agree with. But all of that having been said, we know positively that Fox News is a scurrilous, lying fabricator and propaganda machine. We do know, however, that MSNBC is a propaganda machine. We agree with what they're saying, but they're clearly editorializing. They're clearly taking up positions. They absolutely clearly want Trump thrown out of office as fast as they can get him out of office. And so that colors all kinds of things that they're saying. As a lawyer, you can tell that what they're doing is they're marshaling all of the information and evidence on one side, and they're not balanced at all. It's conceivable that particular thing under safe conditions, administered under safe conditions, I'm still in a position, could conceivably have some sort of effect upon the virus. I don't know. You can't tell from what's being said, because they've both taken these kind of completely intransigent positions where they're editing everything they're saying to be able to make a point, because they think that their audience needs to have it put in more simple terms, not raise nuances. Nobody wants to listen to nuanced presentations because they're not entertaining. So all I'm saying is that I think that we're going to find out when everything shakes down about this whole virus, that there are all kinds of misunderstandings and temporary judgments about things that were being put forth, even by CNN and MSNBC, as fact that we ought to accept. And then they have to later go, oops, I guess that really isn't true. Or I guess that we had a dramatic overreading of the fatality rates. And oh yeah, because we didn't take into account the fact that there may be vastly more numbers of people who've gotten this who don't even have any symptoms. And so all I'm saying is that for the sake of clarity, there's all kinds of editing that's going on the part of news media. And we've always known that. But what's happening right now is that with MSNBC and to some extent CNN, they've gotten into this war with Fox News. And it's made complicated by the fact that Fox News are lying all the time. And that they're putting out full-scale dramatic series about Roger Ailes and what a lying sack of shit he is, and how they dramatize the whole thing on how he's telling them to go ahead and lie and make up stories, say whatever you want. All that's true, but it doesn't justify not telling the full truth and being careful about what you're saying when you're in some kind of a dialectical confrontation or war with people on the right wing. A person has an absolute right not to have any other person penetrate their body in any way whatsoever. Now, the question is, the operative question is, does the state or the collective of people have the right to withhold from a person certain privileges or access to privileges that the collective provides to them in exchange for their agreement to make some type of a compromise with regard to an absolute right which they have a right to assert. And so, for example, if in fact you want to have your children have access to a community provided public education, for example, and you can say, look, I'm not going to allow my child to be vaccinated against something that is highly contagious. And if they take a test, for example, and it proves they're carrying the virus, and they still refuse to have a vaccination that can help neutralize the virus, then the question is whether the collective community has the right to have that child stay away from all the rest of the children who can be exposed to it. Okay? And so this isn't as easy as it might
All right, guys.
appear.
In today's video, I'm joined by someone who I've wanted to speak to for.
I didn't. But anyway, so what I'm saying, Ryan, is that it's clear you have an absolute right not to have them penetrate your body. Period. Okay. The question is, what conditions can be set by the community and by the collective, with the government functioning in the position of the community itself, to tell you you can't have your child come to school, or you can't go to a movie theater if you're carrying the virus. Or for example, a person could say, okay, if I test myself and I'm carrying the virus, I still insist that I can go anywhere I want. And so can the community restrict you? And can they say, okay, you have a choice. You can either stay in your home or you can get the vaccination. We're not going to vaccinate you against your will, but you can't come out into the public, And so those are where the really tough questions are going to get put here. But I believe that you have an absolute, irrefutable right not to have anybody penetrate your body against your will.